今天要跟大家介绍一个类比的 delay 效果器 analog delay。那它叫做 BBD Wonder。那我们来看一下官方网站的一个图片哦，你会发现它在这里把 MN3005的4个晶片都串在一起。传统单颗的 MN3005 晶片通常只能提供大概300到400毫秒的延迟。那这张图就特别用透视和发光的效果来强调它一口气串联了4颗。所以呢，你看一下它的 max time 到达了1200 ns。那就让大家听一下什么叫做最大1200毫秒的声音，也就是说它大概隔1.2秒才会出现。那另外，我也非常喜欢这个3连音的效果。那我们来听看看。那现在我们来听一下它的音色。我们先来听第一个，就是我们会很经常在音摇里面听到的 dot delay。那有时候呢，我用到 solo tone 的时候呢，我会把 mix 转的比较小一点，然后 feedback 再稍微大一点。好，那我们来听一下这个 solo tone 的 delay。那什么叫做 BBD 呢？我们先来看一个介绍的影片。
So let's define some of that. So a bucket brigade, it's when firemen didn't have fire engines and they would get a bunch of volunteer people. First person would stand at the edge of the river and the other person would stand at the edge of a fire, and they would put a bunch of people in between, all with buckets, and the first person would fill the bucket, dump it into the bucket of the person next to them. That person would then dump it in the bucket next to them, and that water theoretically would go all the way down with no loss. But we know there's going to be some loss because it's going to slop and spill. And at the end, that bucket that they first dipped in the beginning is now going to come out at the end where hopefully it's putting out the fire. So we're doing a similar thing with sound, except instead of buckets, we're using capacitors. It's an electronic device that will hold a charge and then let go of that charge. And so as a wave is coming in, that wave is going into this bucket and it fills the bucket up however much that wave was at that moment. And then the next bucket comes along and it fills up how much there is. And over thousands of buckets, you start getting the shape of the sound that went in, except now it's spread across all these different buckets, which are really capacitors. And then imagine a guy with a big drum hammering, and every time he hit the drum, you're supposed to take your bucket and dump it in the person next to you so everybody stays controlled and we lose as little water as possible. That's what we call a clock. And it's exactly the same thing in a bucket brigade delay, in that every time the clock ticks, the bucket's dumped to the next one. And so that changes our delay time. And it was a great pedal, and we've used bucket brigades for years, and then digital pedals came out, which digitized the signal and played back the exact signal that it heard. And everybody loved that at first, but then over time, guitarists noticed that, man, that just sounds like I'm playing on tape, then taking a copy of the tape, moving a little bit, and playing it again. And in other words, the delays were too much like the original. And so all of a sudden, everybody went back to appreciating bucket brigades because the slop from dumping from bucket to bucket, and there's this thing called aliasing that happens because of the wave is a continuous thing and we're breaking it up into these buckets. There's some errors And so we have to use filters to kind of disguise some of the noise that comes from the clock and other things. And the end result is that a bucket brigade, the echo doesn't sound exactly like what went into it. Instead, it's kind of a darker, fatter, puffier, bloomed version of it. And it turns out guitarists love it because they can have echo behind them, but you're never confused. What am I hearing that's the actual guitar and what am I hearing is that's the delay.